Good evening. I, Prajakta Adhikari, on behalf of the Institute of Environmental Architecture and Research, warmly welcomes all our participants and our speaker for today. The Institute of Environmental Architecture and Research, which is a Mumbai based educational research and training institute with a vision to create a sustainable environment through scientific research, education and training, socio-cultural understanding, community engagement, and awareness. We are a multidisciplinary group of scientists, professionals, and academicians who've joined forces to form this organization, having worked collaboratively for more than 15 years on education, environment consultancy, and awareness. Our mission is Environment First. This is the ninth webinar in the series, which we started during the lockdown period. So far, we have reached out to more than 1,500 participants altogether. Our main objective in this webinar series is to provide educational and research inputs and a scientific and analytical approach to environmental issues. I would now welcome our moderator, Dr. Roshni Yehuda, President of IEAR, to introduce our today's panel.
Thank you, Prajakta. Um, I welcome everyone to this webinar, and I want to say a happy Teachers' Day to all the teachers who are there on this program and who continue to spread the light of knowledge. Today's topic is light pollution, also called as obtrusive lighting, as it is known sometimes. This is as sinister as noise or air pollution, but its effects are hardly known. I mean, they are not widely known or understood and not easily evident, but they are certainly long term and chronic. Light pollution basically implies the adverse effects of artificial light on the nighttime environment. And as you can imagine, the causes of this pollution is man made, that is outdoor lighting installations, lighting of building facades, street lighting, neon signboards. They all lead to clutter, glare, and general disturbance of the night sky. And one of the most obvious effects of this light pollution is hindrance or inability to see the starry sky. The twinkle, twinkle little stars, probably they cannot be experienced by children of this generation, especially those who live in cities. I am reminded at this time of the words of famous scientist Rachel Carson, who, in her book, The Sea Around Us, says when she visits the beach at night and watches the wondrous sky, millions of stars blazed in darkness, and on the far shore, a few lights burned in cottages. Otherwise, there was no reminder of human life. We were alone with the stars, the misty river of the Milky Way flowing across the sky, the patterns of the constellations standing out bright and clear, a blazing planet low on the horizon. It occurred to me, she says, that if this were a sight that could be seen only once in a century, this little headland would be thronged with spectators. But it can be seen by scores of people for every night in any year. And so the lights burned in the cottages, and the inhabitants probably gave not a thought to the beauty overhead. And because they could see it almost any night, perhaps they never will. Many years later, these wise words have become a reality. Apart from its known effect on human health, it is also known to affect birds and animals in adverse ways, especially the nocturnal animals and birds who are exposed normally to only about zero point 0.3 lux of moonlight, affecting their feeding and breeding cycles adversely. One of the biggest challenges that we find in addressing light pollution is the lack of awareness and the fact that it is still addressed in a fragmented manner under various disciplines, when clearly, like most environmental issues, it requires an interdisciplinary approach. Let's learn about this subject of light pollution from Kashmira Devlekar, who it is my pleasure to introduce to you. Has done her bachelor's degree from IES College of Architecture, Mumbai, and she has completed her master's degree in environmental architecture from Rachna Sansad Institute of Environmental Architecture in 2016, during which time she did her dissertation on this subject. So, over to you, Kashmira. You can start with your presentation on light pollution.
Is it visible? Screen is visible?
Yes.
Just a second. Yes. Hello everyone. I'm architect Kashmira Develkar. I would like to welcome you all for today's session. Before starting the presentation, I would like to thank Mr. Anil Lad, a retired Deputy Commissioner of KDMC, for his guidance throughout my dissertation. I would also like to thank Roshi ma'am for giving me this opportunity today. Today I'll be talking about light pollution, mostly in context of Mumbai, in which I will cover an introduction of what is light pollution and the available research data till date, then the methodology in which I will explain the design of study, then my data collection, and then in the end conclusion with recommendations and future scope. It will be mostly in the alignment with my dissertation so that I can explain you it in a systematic manner. Let's begin. As a child, we all had a fascination about stars in the night sky. Most of us even wanted to become astronomers when we grow up. If we see the human history, starry sky has always inspired us to ask questions about universe and our existence in it. As the technology progressed, we started using light outside our houses to continue our daily work even after sunset. You can see in this timeline that from candles and gas lamps in the very beginning till today's very advanced illuminator technology, which is fueled by electricity, we started losing the view of clear starry sky. From 1980s, many astronomers across the world started raising issues about it, started raising concerns about it. Today, many communities, organizations are fighting to get back the light. Now, question arises: is light bad? Because it plays a vital role in our daily lives. It is fundamental to our existence, linking cultural, social, economical, political aspects of global society. It has given us many conveniences, allowing us to work indoors or through the night, and it gives us feeling of safety. That means not all type of light, outdoor light, is contributing to light pollution. According to International Dark Sky Association, light pollution is any adverse effect of artificial lighting, including sky glow, glare, light trespass, light clutter, decreased visibility at night, and energy waste. There are four types of light pollution. I will explain them very briefly. First is urban sky glow. It is the glow visible in the night sky over cities and brightly lit developed areas. It occurs due to outdoor light reflected off of atmospheric particles such as fog, dust, smog, etc. Second is glare. It is an uncomfortable brightness of a light when looked at against a darker background. There are two types of glare. One is discomfort glare, which causes stress or fatigue to our eyes, and the second one is disability glare, which may prevent the viewer from seeing the intended object because a stray light is cast into the eyes, causing the retina to lose focus. Third one is light trespass. It occurs when the source of light emits too much light at higher angles or project light too far from where it is intended. For example, we all have experienced the stray light entering through our window from neighboring property, and we are so much accustomed to it that many a times we don't even realize that it is a problem. The last one is light flutter. It is excessive grouping of lights, which creates confusion, distraction from obstacles, and potentially causes accident. I would like to repeat again that light itself is not a pollutant. We mostly see it in news that many astronomers have to go to remote places to see the clear starry sky. Also, the many astronomical observatories which were founded in many astronomical observatories,
Yeah,
which
no.
were
Again,
found
then I got
Many astronomical observatories which were founded in the past are now facing difficulties to record the readings due to this urban sky globe. So these are not the only difficulties we are facing due to the light pollution. Past few years, many researchers, scientists have been doing research on effects of light pollution on the areas apart from the night sky visibility. Let us see what these effects are. When we use artificial light in outdoors, it radiates freely in the atmosphere in all directions. It not only affects human but also the ecosystem around us. To understand this, I studied many research papers in which scientists, researchers have discussed their experiments and inferences, few of which I will discuss here. First, let us see how it affects animals and plants. Light is a potent agent. It is biologically active. In humans, the circadian clock controls a complex cascade of daily and seasonal endocrine function. It also exerts command on migratory, reproductive, and foraging behaviors of animals. It is estimated that majority of the animal life on our planet is nocturnal. Artificial light at night can cause a chronic impairment of their habitat. For example, many research documents the disorientation of sea turtles due to the artificial light. Hatchlings are routinely drawn towards this artificial light instead of queuing on to the natural luminance of the ocean. And instead of moving from uh, land towards water, they tend to follow this artificial lights, and which also decreases their survival rate. Another example I would like to mention that nocturnal birds use the moon and stars for navigation during migration. They get disoriented when they fly through these brightly lit areas. Studies have shown that every year 4 to 5 millions of such birds are killed after striking on the tall buildings. Now let us see how it affects on plants. So a study has shown that the deciduous trees react to the presence of local light by developing early and retaining their leaves longer when there is a local source of light is present near it. This unseasonal behavior results in into stressing the trees, which can lead to the weakening of its lifespan. Now let us move on to the effects on humans. Studies have shown that the amount of light pollution is strongly dependent upon the spectral characteristic of the light source. Artificial light sources, for example, mercury lamp, metal halide, LEDs emit different wavelengths such as UV light, yellow light, orange light, blue light, out of which UV light and blue light are harmful for animals as well as humans. Human vision at night in the presence of artificial lighting involves the use of both rod cells and cone cells in the retina, from which rod cells are uh, more sensitive to blue wavelength. The human circadian rhythm is mediated by non-visual photoreceptor in the retina, with the response function peaking near 460 nm in the blue portion of the spectrum, as you can see in this image. Exposure to light at night, particularly blue-rich light, suppresses the production of melatonin hormone. So melatonin hormone is present in humans as well as animals. It is found in some plants also. This hormone moderates the sleep-wake cycle and plays a very important role in our immune system. Many laboratory and epidemiological studies show that suppressed melatonin production can lead to increased growth rate of breast cancer. This suppressed melatonin production, which is only produced under dark condition during the night, may cause obesity, diabetes, depression, mood disorders, and many a times reproductive problems. Now, next is effect on crime. We provide lights to see our surroundings at night, which gives us a feeling of safety. With regards to the impact of street lighting on crime, studies have found that the results were mixed and generally inconclusive. Hence, it was interpreted that street lighting had no effect on crime. So now that we have discussed the about the light pollution, its effects and its types and its effects, we will see the aim and objective of the study. Aim is to study light pollution in Mumbai, to study its causes and to suggest remedial measures in order to control it. Objectives are to analyze the source of light pollution in Mumbai, then to quantify the extent of light pollution in Mumbai with various methods, to study the impact of light pollution on living beings, and to recommend strategies to reduce light pollution. With respect to limitations, due to time constraint, this study is limited to areas selected which are under high levels of light pollution in Mumbai. Only street light lumen levels are considered for on-site observations, and energy waste due to light pollution is not included in the study. To continue our discussion on this topic, I would like to talk about various methods to calculate light pollution. All the methods can be divided vaguely into two types. One is night sky brightness, where the brightness of the night sky is measured. Then the other one is luminous flux on ground, which measures the lumen levels in the illuminated area. Depending on the purpose, different methods can be used. Let us see some examples. Image A shows the concept of measuring the quality of the night sky. This can be done by with the help of sky meter. The brightness of the sky is determined by a value in magnitude per square arc second. Mostly, astronomers use this method to record their readings. There are other simpler methods used by amateur astronomers and meteor observers like naked eye limiting magnitude, that is NELM method. It measures the brightness of the faintest star one can see with the naked eye. The astronomical magnitude scale increases with faintness. That means magnitude 0 represents a star, brighter star like Vega, and magnitude 7 star would be near the faint limit of the most dark skies. Limiting magnitude is based on the star count of 30 established sample areas with brightness values of the stars given. One of which I have shared here for your better understanding. So the faintest star observed becomes the limiting magnitude of that particular sky. Now there is another method called Bortle scale. It was proposed by John Bortle. It is a 9-step scale which categorizes the night sky into different classes. Class 1 being the best night sky. The steps are given in this chart. You can easily follow the questions and the chart in the chart, and you can then find out at the end what is the Bortle class of that particular sky is. Now, image B shows the measurement recorded from the sky with the help of satellites, helicopters, drones, etc. There are many ways. One is aerial night photography. It is an efficient but costly way of acquiring nighttime data, which can be further continued with the GIS method to do the detailed study. Second one is International Space Station images. Photos captured from by the astronauts from the International Space Station have the potential to provide comparable detail. Anyone can access these images from NASA website. Though it has one drawback, that is the quality of these images is often compromised by the unfavorable meteorological conditions. Image C shows the ground-based measurements with the help of flux meter. It records the outdoor artificial light levels in luminous flux. Many countries, states, regions in Europe and America have adopted to bylaws regulating light pollution. These bylaws are mostly derived from the handbooks provided by the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, that is IES, and International Dark Sky Association, that is IDA, few of which I will discuss here. To reduce the glare effect in the environment created by the light source, IES has defined the vertical control of light distribution. It has divided the lamp fixtures into 4 different categories. First one is non-cutoff fixture, which emit the light in all directions. Hence, it is advisable to avoid it completely. Second one is semi-cutoff fixture. Usually, it refers to the cobra heads, which we see in our roadway lightings. It has a concave surface which spreads light at a wider angle. It allows 5% of total emitted light to escape above the uh, horizontal plane of the lamp as shown in the image. Then the third one is cutoff fixture. Cutoff fixture generate less glare than the semi-cutoff fixture. The cutoff lenses consist of shallow curved glass that is visible slightly below the light fixture. It allows 2.5% of total emitted light to escape above the horizontal plane of the lamp. Then fourth one is full cutoff fixture. Uh, this fixture emits zero amount of light above the horizontal plane of the lamp. They distribute light in a defined pattern, providing more light on the ground where it is actually required. Thereby, it also reduces the power consumption. Now, let us move on to the road lighting methods. The first one is illuminance method, which calculates the amount of light falling on the pavement surface. It is not entirely accurate because this is not the light driver sees. What he sees is the incident pavement illuminance. Hence, the new standard allows us to use the luminance method, which considers a pavement surface reflectance while calculating. Thus, the road surface reflectance also becomes a part of the roadway lighting system. I want to compare it with our Indian standards. In BIS 1944 Part 1 and 2, it is described that the carriageway plays an important role in the visual field of the driver. The physical properties of road surface, such as texture, its color, have a controlling influence on the reflection properties of the road. But due to the lack of technique and knowledge of reflection properties of the road surface, BIS recommends illuminance method to calculate the road lighting lumen level. Next is the mounting height of street light lamp. It affects the illumination intensity, uniformity of brightness, area covered, and relative glare. IS handbook recommends different heights of luminaires ranging from 5 meters to more than 20 meters. Then there is a spacing between lampposts, which is divided into 3 categories: short, medium, and long. Next is lamppost arrangement type. There are several options available for the pattern of the lamppost arrangement according to the type of road, as you can see in these images. Then next is after hour lighting, which states the particular time to switch off or dimming or partial switch off time for the commercial lights. Next is light trespass, which states the maximum illumination distance both horizontally and vertically in the neighboring property. So these are some of the guidelines from the handbooks provided by IES and IDA. Now we will see the Indian standards. As mentioned earlier, Indian standards allow illuminance method for the road designing. Roads are divided into different types according to their width, uh, traffic density, and connectivity, etc. Illuminance levels and type of fixture is mentioned as per the road type. Then the wattage and type of lamp is also mentioned in the Indian standards. Mostly HPSV and now to, LED lamps are provided for the general road lighting. Metal halide lamps are provided for the road junctions. Compact lamps are provided for gardens and aesthetic purpose. According to the road type, the pole height, pole outreach, angle of the pole uh, tilt, and arrangement of pole is mentioned in the Indian standard. In BIS 1981, the formula for pole spacing is given. Then in National Lighting Code 2010, formula for average illuminance level is given. It is a 9-point method which divides the two equal quadrants between two street light poles. Nowadays, softwares like Calculux, Dialux are also used to calculate average illuminance of the road. Now let us see the green rating system which are used in India. USGBC and IGBC have incorporated a credit for reducing the amount of light trespass and sky glue. LEED New Construction Sustainable Site Credit 8 addresses light pollution and awards up to 1 point if this requirement is met. Then ECBC focuses on controlling exterior lighting by giving electricity consumption standards for different types of lighting. Green rating, Griha, which with criteria 6 has incorporated a credit of 1 point for enhancing energy efficiency of outdoor lighting and promoting usage of renewable form of energy. Thus, so far, we have covered the general research data till date on the light pollution. Now, to calculate the amount of light pollution in Mumbai, we first have to understand the methodology of the data collection. Let us see from the beginning. As mentioned earlier, this study aims to find out the causes of light pollution in Mumbai and to recommend the solutions for it. Hence, first I studied the different types of light pollution. Then, to understand it in detail, I explored the basic properties of light, that is, wavelength, spectrum, color, temperature, etc. Then, in order to provide solution, I also studied basic luminary technologies, that is, different types of lamps and their properties. Further, to broaden the study in the review of literature, I studied effects of light pollution on humans and ecosystem, also the city environment. Then various methods to calculate light pollution were also explored. As I mentioned earlier, many countries have adopted bylaws to fight against light pollution. Hence, these standards and guidelines were also studied in detail. Thus, this entire study helped me to decide the methods to calculate the light pollution in Mumbai. With the help of the digital maps and ISS images, I identified the highly polluted areas in Mumbai for my study. In the data collection, I used both limiting both night sky brightness method and then the ground illuminous flux method. To find out the sources of light pollution, I captured various images from the study area to understand the causes of light pollution. To calculate the night sky quality, I used the NELM method. All the data collection helped me to understand and analyze the causes and intensity of light pollution in Mumbai, from which I could further recommend the remedial measures to reduce down the light pollution. Here I would like to add that these recommendations are only on the basis of architectural design. Now let us move on to the actual data collection and its analysis. As you can see, these are the digital maps of the research area from year 2014 to 2016 showing light pollution. They are collected from website called www.lightpollutionmap.info. The highly polluted areas are marked in red, and then afterwards they were measured in square kilometers. From the comparison between 2014 and 2016 showed that the area under light pollution was increased by approximately 35%. When observed closely in these maps, the areas under heaviest light pollution are the areas with commercial buildings like malls, offices, which have their external lights switched on continuously throughout the night for advertising and branding purpose. Areas under slums were also heavily polluted as they are the unplanned growth of the city. People living in these areas tend to light their surroundings very brightly with excessive amount of lighting as they are unaware of the required illumination level. For them, more lighting is good lighting. Hence, one can see the brightly lit areas in these settlements for different occasions such as weddings or religious celebrations, etc. Then dockyards and Bharat Petroleum areas were also under heavily polluted areas. It was observed that major reason for the light pollution in Mumbai is pollution due to all kinds of lighting on roads, airport, railway stations areas. Many major new roads have opened since 2014, which increased the amount of traffic as well as air pollution, which also due to which the light pollution also increased in these areas. Our second method for the data collection was analysis of the images from International Space Station. From these images, it can be seen that area under research is highly polluted due to excessive amount of outdoor artificial light at night. I have marked the areas with maximum illuminance, and you can see that these are the same areas. These are the same areas that are under highly polluted areas in the digital maps which I have shown in the previous slide. For the ground-based observation, images from the areas under study were captured to understand the causes of light pollution and to understand the overall lighting practices followed in these areas. Thus, from these images, we can see that street lights are causing light clutter and light glare. Overly lit billboards, shop lights are causing glare and excessive upward light flux. Monumental lighting is causing large amount of glare. Neon signs, car headlights are causing light clutter and light trespass. Overly lit commercial areas and festive lightings are causing urban glare. Continuously lit outdoor lighting of Bharat Petroleum area and dockyard area are also causing urban sky glow. To measure the ground illuminance flux, the illuminance method is used. Because study area falls under Mumbai region and BMC follows Indian standards. As per different road types, the lumen levels were recorded with the help of the lux meter. The nine-point step method, which I explained earlier, is followed to calculate the average luminance of the street lamps. From the analysis of the data collected, it's clearly seen in this bar chart that illumination levels recorded in the research area are higher than the required Indian standards. According to the general lighting practices, it is considered that more lighting is good lighting. According to the government authorities, while designing, the scheme is prepared with the lux levels almost 1.25 times higher than the required lux levels to take extra care of the deterioration in the lamp performance due to aging. For road junction, it is considered 1.5 times more, due to which the initial lumen output of the lamp provided is always very much higher than it is required. In the illuminance, road surface in the illuminance method, road surface reflectance is not considered. Due to this, more lighting is reflected upward and it is not even getting calculated. Indian standards permits the use of cutoff fixtures for the roadway lighting, but all provided luminaires are uh, semi-cutoff fixtures. And in some places, you can also see non-cutoff fixtures, which also emit light in upward direction. In this next method, I categorized various land use zones under the study area into different types with respect to their on-off timings. Like L1, it is 100%, that is all lightings were on during the night. L2, where half amount of lightings were switched off during the night. And L3, where less than half of lightings were switched off during the night. Lights provide safety to travelers, but when they are used in excessive amount, they create problems. At places like airport, healthcare centers, light is needed continuously to do risky operations. But in case of roads, not all are occupied throughout the night, especially after midnight. Still, it is observed that all the road lights were continuously on throughout the night. To remedify it, lighting levels can be reduced to cater reduced amount of traffic density at night, which will also reduce the energy consumption and thereby light pollution. To calculate the night sky quality, I used NELM method in the research area. Readings were recorded from Santa Cruz, Tilaknagar, and Badlapur. These three places were selected with the help of light pollution maps. Santa Cruz and Tilaknagar areas are from heavily polluted areas, and Badlapur is slightly outside of the polluted area, which was selected for the better comparison. Out of 30 star fields, 8 were selected on the basis of constellations, constellations which were visible at the time of readings. At the time I recorded the readings. All the observations are recorded from the zenith area. These are the 8 selected star field maps, as I mentioned earlier. From the comparative bar charts, we can see that the Santa Cruz and Tilaknagar night skies are more brighter than the skies from Badlapur. Blue and red color are skies from showing the values of from Santa Cruz and Tilaknagar, and green one is Badlapur. That means light is getting reflected more in Mumbai than in Badlapur, which causes more sky glow. This excessive brightness of sky reduces the visibility of starry sky to human eyes. Thus, the data collection and its analysis shows that Mumbai falls under heavily light pollution, with its outdoor lighting sparkling throughout the night. Before moving on to the conclusion, I just want to show you all how rapidly light pollution is spreading. So this is the light pollution map of Badlapur in 2012, from where I took the readings I just mentioned in the previous slide. Now this is the map from 2019. You can spot the huge difference. If you compare the surrounding area also, you can see that it has now completely lost its darkest night sky. So the conclusion of the data collection is that major contributing factors are road lights, and we need to adopt to the lighting practices which help us to control or reduce the light pollution. Mumbai has a large biodiversity as it inhabits the large part of its area under SNGP National Park. It is also surrounded by water from three sides. Hence, increasing light pollution may harm the ecosystem under these areas. All the astronomy lovers, astronomers, has to travel to the remote places to see the stars because the stars are not visible due to heavy from the Mumbai due to heavy sky glow. After this entire study, I have derived some recommendations in context of Mumbai, which are easily applicable and which will give us quick results to reduce and control light pollution. All the different land use areas in Mumbai can be distributed in zones with respect to their lighting practices. Thus, city planners can control the artificial light output in the environment. These zones can be divided in different categories as shown in the image, like R1, R2, R3 zones. Each zone can be classified with different illumination level, lamp types, lamp heights, distance, according to their functional need. Further, these different classes can be scheduled with different on-off timings, dimming schedules. For outdoor lighting, use of luminaires which emit blue light should be prohibited. Instead, lamps with warm white lights should be used. Cutoff fixtures with flat shields should be used to spread the light where it is intended. Then the latest luminance method should be used for the road lighting system. In National Lighting Code 2010, step dimming of road lighting is recommended. It suggests at night when the traffic is less, the light can be dimmed to deliver 50% of the nominal light output by reducing the input power by 40%. Such guidelines should be accommodated in our bylaws and followed strictly. Thus, adaptive lighting concept can be used to reduce light pollution as well as the energy consumption to the large amount. Advertisement boards, billboards, signages should be provided without illumination. If the illumination is provided, then it should be from top to towards bottom direction. Billboards near residential areas should be prohibited to use the illumination inside. Size restrictions along with the illumination level per area of the billboard should be implemented to control the glare of light coming from the billboard. Commercial lighting should be turned off no later than 1 hour after closing the business. Thus, after lighting, thus after lighting hours should be reduced uh, from approximately by 50 to 75% between 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And last but very important, that people should be made aware of light pollution through community programs and school education. Before ending this presentation, I would like to mention the future scope, which is very necessary because more research on this topic will lead us to find better solutions. I have mentioned earlier again and again that Indian outdoor lighting standards are based on illuminance method of lighting. There is a need to research on the advanced methods such as luminance method to design lighting system on more practical grounds. Hence, future study could be based on luminance method of outdoor lighting in context of Mumbai. Also considering environmental factors such as fog, aerosol, humidity, etc. If outdoor lighting is directed only where it is required, large amount of energy will be saved. Thus, future study could calculate this reduction in the energy usage so that more people and especially government could understand the effectiveness of the reducing light pollution. I would like to end the presentation by saying, let us bring the change with one bulb, one fixture, and one background at a time. The world is beginning to see the darkness. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashmira. I think we can stop sharing. And thank you, Kashmira. In the time that we have some questions from the audience, I will ask you some questions regarding the research, since this is a research lecture series. So, firstly, let me ask you, what motivated you? You are an architect, and I'm sure there are architects who are watching this program. So, what was the reason that you took up this topic? What was the motivation behind taking this subject?
Actually, I have mentioned in the beginning only that many of us wanted to become an astronomer, like from the childhood only. So I always liked this subject from my childhood. Even my bachelor's thesis was on astronomy, like Center for Astronomy in Bangalore. So I think stars they inspire me a lot. So when I could not see, like I have shown the a light pollution map of Badlapur at the end that I cannot see the stars now. So that's why I chose this topic.
Very nice. So I think that this is very important that you choose topics which are of interest to you, and then you begin
Yes.
to learn more and more about it. So, as you went along, what were your major challenges that you faced? Like when you started, you had some idea, and then later on, did you end up with the doing the right kind of thing, or did it go completely wrong, or did you face any problems while doing this research?
Uh, Actually, light pollution in India. So when I started my data collection, no, when I started my literature review, so for in the beginning, I did not find any material with respect to like in context with Mumbai or in context even in India also there were no any research or studies were done previously. So all the research papers were from different countries from Europe and America. So that's why that was a little difficult to like correlate to our environment and our date, like our surroundings and like that. So yeah, that was the main thing. And then when I started my data collection, and I went to the this municipality and government offices, and they were like, "Arey, madam, we like people are crying that we are not providing enough light, and you are saying that there is light pollution in Mumbai." So the data collection was very like little difficult to gather.
So I guess that most people don't know about this subject at all.
Yes, because people think that more light is a good lighting, but that is not the case. You will have to provide it in a systematic manner, like to use the cutoff fixtures, full cutoff fixtures, so that you can get the entire focus on yourself, on the areas where it is required, rather than in the upward direction.
Yes, I was just watching a documentary recently on the DW channel on light pollution, and now it seems there has been extensive studies on the effects of light pollution on animals, on human beings, and also coming up with solutions. So there are new types of lights being manufactured these days, which are being used,
Yes.
which will reduce the effects of light. This is what I hear.
Yes,
Okay.
actually, I also read one paper. In that, it was like the study was about the like LED lights we have, and as I mentioned, that LED light emits blue wavelength. So what they are doing right now is they are doing the phosphor coating from inside, so that it absorbs the blue wavelength of the light, and then it emits only the warm white light. So that is not like that does not affect that much.
Yes, I think this is a very important point because you mentioned about ECBC and the fact that ECBC generally talks about lighting and in terms of energy efficiency. It doesn't talk about really about light pollution.
Yes.
And in fact, because of ECBC, a lot of people have switched to using LED lights. Almost everybody, even though it is expensive, people have switched to LED lights. And there are problems with LED lights, which we have only begun to realized now in terms of now you're saying about the phosphor coating, etc., and so on. So many people have complained that LED lights are harsh and that they are, pointed, and you can't look at it for a long time and so on. So these are very important. Let me look at some of the questions which have come on the chat. There is a question from Radha Sundareshan, and she's asking you about the dimming of street lights, whether it is actually being practiced anywhere in Mumbai at present. That is number one question. Second question is about MH lamps. I think you mentioned somewhere
Metal halide. Metal halide.
metal halides. So so the question is, what are these metal halide lamps? Could you explain? And why you mentioned that they should be banned?
Okay. First, I will answer about metal halides. So, I just did the basic study about it. So, I just know that metal halides emit blue wavelength. So, as I explained, that blue light is harmful for animals and planets and entire ecosystem. So, that is why these MH lamps should be avoided. Then, first question
Was about the dimming of street lights.
Yeah.
Is it
Yes.
practiced anywhere?
No, I did not see it in Mumbai, but I read one paper where they did the experiment in England, where like in the entire city they did this experiment where for 2 years. So what they did is from 2006 to 2007 or 2005 to 2007, they kept the light continuously on throughout the night, and then they and from 2006 to 2007 they started dimming the light at like after midnight, and the results found were very inconclusive, because somewhere it is seen that crimes, like if we talk about crime, that we think that if there is a less amount of light, then crimes will happen, but they did not find like any solid exam. Yeah, so that's why it is inconclusive that it affects crime or not. So that's it.
So did you answer the question about the why they want it to be banned?
Yeah, because the blue wavelength part is there. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question from again from, I will continue because Radha Sundareshan has again asked us that the government is currently putting in gardens and parks very high floodlit type of lights. Is that a good thing?
No, because it emits light in upward direction, so it causes a light glare, a light clutter, and many things.
Yes, and I think that it also disturbs the animals and
Yes.
birds. The birds like not birds, but mammals like bats, which are very active during the night time. These are nocturnal animals. I've heard that even they did in this DW documentary, for example, they were showing how the animals feeding and breeding activities, they
Yes.
become delayed because they assume that it is still daylight, because some of these
Yes.
lights are so bright that the animals cannot distinguish. And of course, it also affects humans because even from our phones, when we constantly look at our phones, that blue light is coming onto us, and that affects our sleeping patterns. We don't get any more that deep sleep that is required for rest and refreshment.
Yes.
So these are important points. There's a specific question by Mihir Herlekar, who's asking about how much time the readings were taken using the lux meter. You took some readings on lux meter, so the
Yes,
question
yes.
is that for how much time duration did you take it?
I think I like three or four times only. Like I covered like it was the Mumbai area only, so I could cover it in 3 to 4 days only. Like for 2-3 times I took the measurement from the same place just to check if like they all matches together or not.
Okay. There's a question from Mr. A.V. Shenoy. Mr. Shenoy is a very active person taking up various causes in the city, and especially for mobility. He is, along with Mr. Datar and all, a group is there, Mumbai Mobility Forum, of which he is a part. So he is asking a question about BST. Have you taken up taken this issue up with BST for street lighting.
Yes.
After it changed lights from sodium vapor lamps to LED lamps, the light intensity has gone up. So, have you personally taken it? What is your opinion on this?
Actually, the Indian standard data, what I have mentioned in the study. So I got this information from BSc only. So, they are not that much concerned about the whether to use LED light or whether to use HPHV lamps, because for them it is just a circular coming from the the authorities above them. So it is not like a big major concern for them.
Yes, I think I would just like to add to this that perhaps changing from the sodium vapor lamps to the LED lamps was meant for more efficiency. But maybe, Mr. Chenoy, what was more important is to have the luminaires in such a way that they were downlighting, because the street lamps are meant to light the streets and the roads and the guide the traffic, etc. But being sometimes being so bright, they tend lighting up the sky and creating that glow which is unnecessary. So maybe the luminaires also need to be paid more attention to how they are designed or built. Do you agree with that, Kashmira?
Yes, 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 of course.
Okay, there's one more question from Radha Sundarishan. She is asking you whether during your research you found any good examples of lighting practices in Mumbai.
No, no, not at all. like there are four, like for example, if we see the street lights only, there are four types of road in Mumbai: A1, A2, and B1, B2. So A1 is like our major link roads and all, and B2 is the smallest alleys and all between the residential areas and all. So sometimes the readings used to match from A2 and A1 and B2. Like there were nothing consistent lighting I could see anywhere in Mumbai.
You mentioned about the green building rating systems in your presentation, and that some of them are addressing light pollution. If I remember correctly, you talked about Griha and IGBC, and some of them have given some credits for light pollution. So have you checked out any of these buildings, whether they have got any credits or have they done anything really in terms of light pollution? You have not.
No.
So perhaps we can get some idea from these buildings if they have done something, maybe something, some positive things have been done. Let me move on to the other questions. Did you come across anything regarding solar lighting during this study, and does it help anyway in reduction of pollution, considering the wholesome sustainability? This is from Aditi Latkar.
No, actually, as I mentioned that energy, like solar energy, if we talk about solar energy, it is like the consumption of the energy. It comes under the consumption of the energy. So that was the limitation for my study that I did. It was not part of my study.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, Aditi, solar lighting is good in the sense that the source of the source of energy is not thermal, is not electricity as such, but it is solar power, and therefore it is good in that sense. So there is no pollution at source. But at the same time, what is the light that is being used, and whether the luminaire that is used in the light, is it actually downlighting or is it lighting the sky? These are also important things. So while solar lighting as in general is good, the point about the actual type of lighting that is used, the kind of color and all of that is also very important. There's a question from Jyoti Dharma about, do we have any rules related with light pollution?
No, like Indian standards, no, we don't have any rules. Only lighting code 2000, national lighting code 2010 mentions about the dimming of light. That's it. Otherwise, there are no bylaws regarding light pollution.
you mentioned about the BIS standards, right? Something
Yes,
about the BIS standards, and you referred to them. It talks about the average illuminance, about the
yes,
pole
of the road.
spacing. But I don't
Yes.
think there is anything in the BIS standards also related to
No,
light pollution.
no. Even the illuminance method we use in our Indian standards, that is also very outdated. So it only caters to the amount of light falling from the luminaire and not the reflected light from the road surface. So that part is completely eliminated. So that is why it is not completely correct.
Hmm. So, considering this kind of study that you have done, would you don't you think that this study should be shared with people who are doing standards on lighting,
Yes, yes.
in order that this is taken into consideration? And you mentioned some recommendations in the end. Maybe these
Yes.
should be uh, given to the authorities who are in charge of standards, so
Hmm.
that they can be incorporated, because nobody is considering, and then we have a big problem after
Hmm.
a while, so maybe you should consider doing that.
Yeah, actually, I met one person from IIT, like I was when I doing the research. So Maharashtra government has some kind of like light pollution and its effects. They have started some kind of research from IIT, but then he told me that it is a very like large scale project. So funding and all is there. So that is why it takes a lot of time to start and then continue the research.
Okay. So basically speaking, the answer is that there are currently no standards, and therefore there's, in a way, the brighter side is that we can introduce these standards. And especially there's a question by Mr. Shenoy again on standards on highway lighting.
Hmm.
There are standards on highway lighting, right? But they don't include, I think, anything about light pollution. That's the
No.
question. Is there anything on light pollution in?
No,
Yeah.
no, nothing.
So yes, I think that when you look at the scenario of light from the night sky point of view, one of the biggest sources of light pollution may be the street and
Car lights, car
yes, car
headlights.
lights, yes. When you land into Mumbai, you generally see the brightest parts of the city are the roads and the
Roads.
streets and the highways, with two things. One is the light of the cars, and one is the street light itself. So yet we don't have any standards on that. Okay, so I thought that one of the things which was very interesting in your research was the methodology of your study, that you use this NELM, right?
Naked eye limiting magnitude.
Yes.
Yes.
So I thought that that was a very interesting thing, because it uses a very, let's say, a simplistic method. Of
Yes.
course, you also did the ground, testing with lux meters and all. So can you a little bit elaborate on what this kind of things, how does this NELM method work? And could you have like a network of people doing this? And is there any group? And can you tell me a little bit also about the astronomers that helped you in doing this study?
NELM method, that is naked eye limiting magnitude. So as I explained in my presentation, that it is the uh, magnitude of the faintest star which we can see with our naked eye. So for example, say one constellation we can consider like Orion. Okay, so if I from Tilaknagar or Andheri, from these areas, if I try to see it, then maybe I will see only 3 or 4 bright star in it. And from Badlapur, I can see maybe 7 stars. The number of the number increases. So say 7 number of stars I can see from Ballapur and 4 number of stars I can see from Mumbai. So that is the difference the NELM method gives us, and that is how it tells us that Mumbai is a highly polluted area and Ballapur is little lesser.
Does it also require that you are making these observations on specific days, like maybe clear skies or something?
Yes,
Because there
yes.
can be atmospheric disturbance as well.
Yes, so these the dates I selected for my observation. So they were near the new moon, and also from our IMD, I also Indian Meteorological Department. I also checked the cloud cover data for those days. Also, I checked the moon time, moon set and moon rise timing, because you need the sky uh, mostly darker, like if there is a moon you cannot see the stars, like because it is bright at that time. So that is why I also check the moon set and moonrise times for that. And also one more important thing, I took it from the 7 to 10 story above the 7 to 10 story high buildings, because at the ground in the Mumbai you can only like the vision uh, is street lights and car lights, they obstruct your vision, so that is why you have to like go to higher levels to observe these stars.
But as per the method, does it tell you whether you have to see it from the ground or from a higher point? Anything
No,
like that?
that was no,
Just the
it does
naked
not.
eye, what
Yes,
you can
yes,
see
yes,
from the naked eye.
yes.
Hmm. Okay, so there would be a difference if you go up a mountain and look at the thing, and if you if you're going up a 10-storied building, and if you're at the ground level, I'm sure there's going to be a difference in
Yes,
what you
lot
can
of
observe.
difference. Yes, yes.
Yes. There are some more questions from again Radha Sundareshan. There is one question about what can be done about light pollution due to car headlights. Car headlights. These are unavoidable at night. So, are there any maybe there are some countries where they have thought about this? Anything about car headlights that can be done? Are you aware of
Mm,
anything like that?
No, actually, in my thesis book, I have mentioned it in the future scope that someone can take this as a research to like how to reduce the light splatter from the car headlights.
Yeah, I think that's a good area because this is something that maybe car manufacturers should think about as
Yes.
you know how to reduce that. That
There is one thing, excuse me, I want to disturb you, or I
yes,
want to rather suggest. There is one system which gives, that is a prism lighting system.
prism
The new
lighting.
prism
Okay.
lighting. The new cars are coming with the prism lighting. That is a glass ball, rotating glass ball provided in the headlight, and that reduces the light disturbance to the opposite direction vehicles, because it reduces
Okay.
light pollution to the it reduces the disturbance to the eyes of the
Yes,
opposite.
it reduce glare. You mean to say yes?
Glare reduction is
Yeah.
there,
Yes.
and that is a new headlight system. It is come up now.
Yes,
Okay.
it can be very annoying while driving, especially if you're on the highway and the opposite side car light is hitting your eyes.
Yes.
So I think the new cars are taking care of that. Thanks, Rajiv. That is from architect Rajiv Taishete, who is the vice president of IEAR. There are some more questions now. Kashmira, the buildings are also being lighted, as you know.
Yes. Yes.
Nowadays,
Monumental lightings. Yes.
yes. Now the question here is by Piyush Kokte on heritage lighting. That is heritage buildings being lighted in India is what I think.
Hmm.
But I'm also seeing that, for example, if you go to Shanghai, Beijing, and all, I see that in the night all the buildings are lighted. I don't know why, but all the buildings are lighted with LED lights. It's amazing. I was wondering what is the reason, but it's just to make a nice impression, I guess, of the
Yes.
city. So the question that Piyush is asking is about are there any standards on heritage lighting in India?
No, there are like I did not come across any, but what we can do like for the billboards I have mentioned that you can do the light from top towards bottom direction. So this monumental lighting can also be done that way. Like instead of putting the focus on the ground, like the uh, lamp on the ground, you can put it on the top of the building, and then from there you can throw the beam on the building so that it gets lit.
Yes. I think also to add to that, the Energy Conservation Building Code (CCBC) has some standards on facade lighting, but that is of course related to energy efficiency, but it limits the wattage of the lamps being used on the facade. So maybe that is a sort of a limitation, but it's not specific to any heritage building or as such. It is for any building, especially right initially it is for commercial buildings, but maybe that's a starting point, and one can look at also the output of the lamps. And as Kashmira is saying, specifically it's more important that the lamps are not lighting up the others houses and others, generally the environment itself. It should be specifically targeted to what is the required to be lighted. For example, I know that for gardens, earlier we used to have these tall lights which would light up half the garden, but now people have developed these small bollards which are hardly 1 meter or something in height, and they are put only along the pathway, so as people walk on the pathway, the pathway is lit, not the whole garden. So the idea of light pollution is that we should not waste the light that is coming out of a luminaire and target it to whatever is actually on there. I think I have practically finished questions from the here. Yes, that's about it. But let me ask you, in terms of, you mentioned about the future scope for light pollution. There is a lot to do. But now I'm asking you, like, you finished your research in 2016, and 4 years afterwards, now 2020, do you see anything that you could do better now, or is there something that you would like to have done better at that time, or something that is looking at retrospect on your research work? Would you like to do something in a better way?
Actually, yes, because that time, due to the time constraint, I only considered the street lighting part of the light pollution. So if I want to like continue it further, so I can take up this other research areas like energy consumption, which is a huge factor in the light pollution, so that government officials can also understand the importance about it. Like, they only see the economic part of it, so at least in that way only they can start doing something about it. So yes, the energy consumption part, and I think, yeah, that's it only. Yeah.
So I think just maybe one part I would like you to ask before we probably close, unless there are more questions. Is there, I was once part of a litigation on neon lighting, like these advertisement boards, especially if you go to some major parts of the city, like in Mumbai, it is still okay, it's not too much. But if you go to Times Square, or if you go to Hong Kong, one of those city centers is lit up with the neon lights, which are moving, and they have a lot of light being emitted by the LED lights. So in your study, did you come across any effects of these, or what is the significance of this kind of lighting in the center of the city?
First of all, it causes sky glow, due to which we cannot see the stars from the sky. Then again, as I mentioned earlier also, that it affects us also, because as I mentioned, that these blue lights, these emissions, that they affect our hormonal system, our, like, the melatonin, the hormone, which suppresses due to this UV blue light. So it affects on our health, lot of obesity and reproductive problems, then cancer also. This also causes cancer also. So yeah, these excessive lighting affects our health, but then we don't realize these things because we are not aware about it. like the lights. If I say that I am having headaches, but then somebody else will say, "Arey, because you did not sleep properly, that is why you are having headache." But maybe the major issue is that those light emissions and those wavelengths are affecting my health. So that is the issue, that people don't know about it. So they continue to their daily lives, and is lighting everywhere, and so that is why I
Yes.
think we should spread more awareness about it.
Yes. So I just recall that when we had done this litigation, there was some kind of studies on human health that were done in people on Marine Drive, and many things were correlated, like high blood pressure, sleeplessness, headaches. All of these things were found among the people. Of course, there are multiple causes for these, but generally speaking, this is what the studies all over the world have also shown, that people, building owners, for example, just in the they may get some money out of putting up billboards for their society or building, so they agree for these neon lights. But these neon lights, because they run in the night continuously, of course there is a Bombay High Court ruling which stops neon lights after 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or something like that. So but I don't know how much it is being followed all over, but that's mainly because of its effect on the human health. So this is something that is very important. There's just one question. Did you come across any positive examples of this of light pollution anywhere in your study? Did you see any positive examples anywhere in your study of people who have done something in terms of light pollution in any country also, maybe?
No positive example, no. No.
Okay. All right. So positive example was no. That is quite depressing, according to the person who asked the question. But let's end this on a positive note, that it's very good that you have done this study, and I hope that there will be more further studies by many others who will pursue this field, because you have shown something to us. And let's hope that you will also take this further and do some more research, like PhD or something in this subject, and publish papers on this subject, write articles, because as you said, the major problem with this subject is lack of awareness. People don't know that excessive light can cause problems to themselves and to a lot of other people. So maybe you can do all of these things. So with that, I think we come to the end of this webinar. I hand over to Prajakta.
Thank you, Kashmira, for presenting your research on this topic, which is so important but merely discussed. Thank you, Roshni ma'am, for summing up with the key points. Our next webinar, as you see on the screen, will be conducted on 12th of September at 4 p.m. We are starting with a series of sessions with a short training at the end on indoor air quality. So do share this with all your near and dear ones and the really interested ones. Tune in to our Instagram and Facebook page for further updates. The link to join our pages have been posted in the chat window. Also subscribe to our YouTube page and do check our past webinars. We have really interesting webinars with some research series and few of the knowledge series also. We should also be announcing our short certificate courses very soon. So stay tuned. And thank you all for joining today. Take care and stay safe. Bye.